Hey guys, it's that time again, Detour Live, and the old band's back together. I'm joined by four-time National Road Champion Johnny Trevaro and Olympic gold medalist Scotty McGrory. Fellas, let's start by unpacking a pretty epic stage at the Vuelta. We thought going into it was going to be a bit of a ding-dong battle between Roglic and Carapaz, but Hugh Carthy, Scotty, pulled one out of the box. That was pretty bloody impressive.
It is impressive, but and look, it's up to the riders to decide what they think of this. But the Angliru, which is that final climb, which is a brute, they talk about it being the most difficult climb in professional cycling, and it was honestly like slow motion TV watching them come up that final climb, just brutally slow and almost painful to watch. But Hugh Carthy did a great performance to come away with the stage win. He looked fantastic. It was Enric Mas that was the first to go. But, it's just this arm wrestle, isn't it, between the top guys on a climb that steep. And Roglic looked like he faltered and started to struggle, but you don't lose that much time because they're all going so slow anyway. So it's quite an interesting thing. Marcel Wust put up a post because, his former German superstar sprint champion. He won 4 stages before the stage that went to the Angliru in 1999, the first time they ever went up it, and it was wet that day. He said he used a triple chain ring because, it was unheard of to go up climbs that steep back then. So I think he was riding something like 30-26 was the chain ring cassette combination that he had running. And he said if he was in the saddle, the front wheel just kept coming up. And when he got out of the saddle, the back wheel would just spin because the roads were wet and so slippery. So it's almost not cycling, but that's a debate that the riders can perhaps talk about if they want.
I said to George about last night, I said, listen, mate, if they had that back in our day, I would have had to ride up with 42.28. He said, nah, you would have been walking.
Well, one thing that we've said on the show a number of times is how emotional riders are getting at the finish. Well, old Hugh Carthy, he was the opposite. I want to show some footage of him crossing the line. It's like, here we go.
Yeah, you did it.
Perfect.
Yeah, you did it.
Let's go around.
Come on. You did it. Go. Everything is with her. She has everything. You go with her. Congratulations.
Yeah, just, he smashes
He got
a
a little smirk. Yeah,
and then the post-race interview, I love it because who's the French guy that does all the interviews? I think he was doing the stuff at the Giro.
Jeff.
Jeff.
Jeff. Anyway, he's started pretty good with his standard question, but his middle one was a bit of a stinker. And old Hugh plays it with a straight bat.
Your first Grand Tour victory, and it is L'Angliru. How good is that?
It's a dream come true to win. Any race, any professional race is a dream come true, but to win in a Grand Tour on a mythical climb, it doesn't get any better than that. It's hard to put into words.
1.2 kilometer to go. You chose to change rhythm. Was that a good time?
It looks like it. Yeah, I won the stage.
And now 4 riders in 30 seconds on GC. How does it look for the last week?
Exciting. I think for the public it's everything they want. A close race going into the time trial, and I think everything's to play for.
Thank you.
That must have rattled him because he's like, well, yeah, I won the stage. Of course it was a good move. Sensational stuff.
Some great questions.
If you look at the betting, so the punters for the overall, Roglic still $1.25, Carapaz $4, but the big mover is Carthy. He's in from $14 to $6.50. What do you think is going to happen with the last week? Obviously, we've got a time trial. I'll be honest with you, lads, I haven't really previewed the stages, so I'm hoping you've done a little bit more research. But what are you expecting, Scooter, for this last week?
Well, let's start with the time trial because they have a rest day, obviously, today for them, but and then straight back into it with the TT. It's 33.7 kilometres. Roglic, obviously the favourite of the GC guys to do well. He's been consistent, winning Grand Tour time trials previously, so I expect him to be the best of the GC guys. If not win the stage, then definitely be the best of the GC guys. But And you look at someone like Hugh Carthy, he's a bit gangly, tall. He looks like sort of, just purely a climber, but he's actually not too bad against the clock. So he might surprise a few. I don't think he's going to compete with Roglic in the TT, but, against the other guys, Carapaz and also Dan Martin. And the next one that's probably close enough to really still contend is Enric Mas. Mas has done a couple of good time trials, and Hugh Carthy certainly has. At the Giro last year, Carthy, he finished 8th in the 34K time trial that Roglic won, and he beat Carapaz in that as well. So 8th in a Grand Tour time trial last year. He's definitely going better than he was last year, and he was good in that Giro, finished 11th overall. So Carthy's got some good legs. So I expect him maybe to go second best out of the GC guys, but I think it's Roglic back into the jersey after the TT.
Yeah, I agree. It's pretty flat TT, except the last 2K. It's got a real good little sting in the tail, which will suit all the GC guys, I suppose, but Roglic most of all. I expect him to win that time trial tomorrow. And I reckon you did right. I reckon Carthy could end up moving into second place after that, because Carapaz is not bad, but I think Carthy's actually going to go better. But then it's still going to be nothing in it. I mean, I wouldn't expect Carapaz to lose more than, say, 30 seconds, maybe 40 to Roglic. Could lose a bit of a fraction more, but I reckon it'll be around about that. So he'll still be 30 seconds down. Then the last week of this tour is nowhere near as tough as what we've had, but there are still climbing days to come. I don't think there's anything there that will crack Roglic, especially with Jumbo-Visma being so strong. So if he does the time trial, we all think tomorrow, he's going to be very hard to beat in this Vuelta. And
Jumbo-Visma were super bloody strong. We said to George Bennett before the start, every time he comes on the show, he has a really good ride. He was sensational, and so was Sepp Kuss.
Yeah, they've been so important to Primoz, in every bike race he wins, really. The team's been so strong. Kuss, as I mentioned, is just this year it's just been amazing. His ride in Tour de France was brilliant. And when it really comes to the crunch, you see him bridging gaps, doing everything that's needed. So that's why I think that Primoz Roglic is going to be so hard to beat. But as you said, George, he's been on every time he comes on the show, he does a really good ride. So he's probably keen to come on again.
Oh, yeah, we'll try and milk it as much as we can in this last week for sure.
I think Primoz will be a minute. I'll give him a minute after the TT up, and then the biggest challenge to any of his contenders is that strength of the team. So anyone that wants that has to go on the attack to try and get back, whatever it is, 40 seconds, as you say, Johnny, I say 60, who knows. They've got to overcome the mind of the Jumbo-Visma team, which I just don't think anyone can.
Hey, Scotty, I want to ask you as a rider, what's surprising everyone is how long Roglic has been good for. Normally, how long would you have window-wise to be on top form throughout a season?
Well, if you go back to, anyone that's tried to win, 2 Grand Tours in a season, anyone that's tried to go back-to-back, so as it was in the, if we go back to the real world before, the normal world before COVID, it was the Giro into the Tour. And the last person to do that was Marco Pantani in 1998. So it's virtually been impossible for anyone to do that since then. So there's 12 years some people have tried. So what they have done is maybe tried for the Giro and then the Vuelta and missed the Tour to give themselves that time to come back up again. Obviously a very unique season. So I think everybody's very surprised. It's not just the Tour that, Primoz maybe, finished second in the Tour, but obviously on great form all the way through and showing that he's still got great form now. But he also won the Criterium de Dauphiné before the Tour. So it's not that he's just been going since the start of the Tour. It's also several weeks before that. So this has been an extraordinary performance by Primoz, regardless of where he runs in all of these races.
And plus Liège in the middle. So he's just had no back-off time. And great whirls as well. So, yeah, he's just been up to scratch the whole way, yeah.
Johnny, it'll be interesting next year, won't it, to see how he is next year, because this has been an extraordinary run from him. Is this going to be damaging to him? Is this the best we'll ever see of him? Or is this just going to make him so much stronger? It'll be intriguing 2021.
We've got a few comments.
I think we'll be better. I think we haven't seen the best of him yet, actually.
Yeah. We've got a few comments coming in. Sam says, Mitch will be so happy on your EF. Hugh is such a straight shooter. Apparently his chain ring was really hard compared to Roglic. So he must have been riding a bigger gear, was he?
Bigger gear, yeah. Perhaps I'm not that sure. You know that. Look, so I'm based at the moment. I'm still in Bendigo, and you know, I guess from our training group and our community of cycling here in Bendigo, we should take some credit for this because Hugh did come to Bendigo for a training camp with the old Rafa Condor JLT team, 2014, I think it was. So he started that season here in Bendigo, as that team used to come out here so often. He won the Tour of Korea that year. I think he was second in the Tour of Japan, which set him up to go into the pros, which has led him now to this stage win at the Vuelta. So a lot of it's got to do with us here in Bendigo, of course.
Well, he said, you know, he actually said something about that. You know, this is his first Grand Tour win, and it's taken him 6 years to recover from Bendigo, he said.
We've got another comment from the Wheel Wizard. He says, Scott, what's with the facial growth is for transplants for you all? Definitely not the same guy I saw racing around the, how do you pronounce that? Kipke with my favourite Belgian, Matty Gilmore. And then he's followed it up with, and Scott, using an Australian term, you look shitehouse.
That's a mixed metaphor, that one.
Great to hear from the fans. Good work, thank you. So what is with the facial hair? I shaved it off. So it's the COVID beard, right? So I grew the COVID beard this year, and I myself haven't got used to it at all. However, my partner won't let me shave it off. She tells me she likes it, and I did shave it recently because my daughters don't like it, and I copped it from the missus to grow it back. So it's coming back. It's not about me; it's about others.
John, what is going on in the background there?
I got to guess.
Professional.
No, I've got to guess. I've got to stick his head in. You know, when we were talking with Albie the other day, and suddenly my grandson stuck his head in, and I said, because I said, "G'day, Albie." Well, my grandson's name is Albie.
Oh, so
and that's why,
right.
and that's why he stuck his head in the other day. He was just here. There, I was going to drag him in, but anyway.
Okay.
About that.
And you had a great birthday, didn't you? I missed you guys since your son's birthday, 40th.
Yesterday, yes, Dino's 40th yesterday. Great day. Yeah.
Johnny's on a 4-day bender, so strap yourself in, folks. Tom Maloney, he says, "Hi guys. Sean Kelly was asked about young tour winners. He compared it to mature juniors not making it when they go to seniors." Making it. He said it will depend on how they mature in the next few years. What do you think about that? Start with you, Scotty.
So, as in these young guys that are doing so well, how are they going to be in another 4, 5, 6 years? Is that?
I think so. Yeah.
Kind of the gist of it. Yeah. Well, who knows? They're just so much more. And if I go back to when I was in the Institute of Sport, so that was obviously the Australian Institute of Sport was the I guess the model that the British Institute took on and then took it to another level. And we thought we were doing we were doing things better than anyone else at the time. But as athletes, I felt that we were very immature. I know I was. I didn't really understand, all of the power data and the heart rate and all those things. We were told what to do rather than being empowered to educate yourself about what to do and learn about yourself. You were always told this is how you should respond from these efforts and this sort of training. Whereas I think all these young guys now, as we've heard it so many times from a lot of the experts, that they know, they really understand their bodies. They're so well trained even from under 17s before you go into under 19s. And that transition from 17s to 19s, there's a massive drop off, especially with the girls, unfortunately, because obviously the career prospects and the money made from women's cycling is far less than the men, unfortunately. So there's a big drop off of athletes from under 17s to 19s. The lads, a little bit different, and they're very well trained. They understand about power meters, power training, wattage, power to weight, all those sorts of things, watts per kilogram. So as they come into the pro ranks, they already are so much more advanced in understanding of their bodies and the intricacies of professional sport than the previous generation. So I think it will just come down to motivation because physiology doesn't change. If you're a good athlete in terms of physiology, it's always with you. You can improve it slightly, and the only way to then see it decline is either overtraining or lack of interest. So I think it'll just come down to their motivation. Can they stay that motivated?
I'm just saying, Scotty, that's right. Look, the old farts like Tommy Maloney who's talking, but joking.
You and me as well. Yeah.
We've seen the youngsters come through in the past and get burnt out, and that's why the question's coming up. But they weren't handled correctly. The problem was not that they were so young, that they were worked too hard when they were so young. Now they're monitored so closely, and they know when to back them off. So they're still progressing quite well, but they don't burn them out, and that was the problem that happened years ago.
Yeah.
Okay,
Well,
I've got
a lot less. They race a lot less, don't they? Because back then the season, well, okay, this year of course is unusual, but everybody races less than we used to back in the day. So the young guys that aren't going to possibly be burnt out now are also racing even less because they understand the data, they can see the fatigue. As soon as your power starts to drop during races, that the coaches then can see that, well, you're not actually producing the power you were a month ago. You're starting to get tired. We need to back you off, and we'll change the program for the rest of the season. So that's what happens now with the young guys. Back in the day, it was just keep flogging them until they can do any sort of job at all to the end of the year.
It's great that when you hear the guys like Stuart O'Grady, Hank Vogels especially, Robbie McEwen, what they used to do, they knew their body so well, and they were youngsters and they were first pro or in our elite squads, like with Heiko and Charlie. They would feign sickness because they knew they couldn't do that race. They couldn't do something because their body told them they're going to have a break. So they just were smart enough to say, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not well. They come up with a reason not to do it, and that would get them through. Yeah,
I've got a story like that. So in my time after the 1988 Olympic Games, so Dean Woods was our strongest rider. We had Brett Dutton, Wayne McCartney, they were the three older guys. They all moved on the following year. And then Steve McLeod and I were the two oldest riders in the next group of riders. And Steve was definitely the strongest rider by far. And I remember a time we were training in Germany. We had a morning session of team pursuit efforts, and Steve just tore us all apart. So we had a bunch of younger guys come through as well. And Steve just totally ripped us all a new one. And then we came in the afternoon to the afternoon session on the track, and Steve walked in later just in casual clothing. And we said, Steve, what are you doing? He said, well, I told the coach that I was feeling a bit tired after the session this morning, and he said you probably should have the afternoon off. And we're sort of all looking at each other like, well, you completely smashed us in the morning. You're definitely the strongest. We're all struggling, but you get the afternoon off. So then he would then get freshen up the next day and just smash us another one. So we would all sort of keep going down and down and down. And look, Steve was just the best rider, but he got that treatment that, they believed him that he was tired, so they gave him time to freshen up. And I guess that's the smarts of guys like Robbie and co to actually, get ahead of the game and actually make sure they did get that time to freshen up.
Well, I've got a story like that as well. I went for an 18K walk yesterday, woke up this morning and couldn't be stuffed. So it's about listening to your body, don't have to burn yourself out. Hey, I've got a question for both of you. I'll start with you, John. How does this season affect the riders market in terms of price? So when you're looking to build a team, you're probably going to be less inclined to pay your $2-3 million for these old veterans that have, like your Nibblies and all that. You'd be better off paying overs for a young guy like Scotty was saying that, is well drilled, is professional, understands his body, and developing them. It will have an effect, on the riders market. John?
Look, I don't reckon it will affect the old farts that you're talking about, like the Nibblies and that, because they're still huge people in the sport, whether they're actually going to win another Grand Tour or not. They're, the Italian teams love a Nibali because, of who he is and so forth. I think the ones that get affected are the middle group, because everyone wants these young stars that are showing potential. They jump. They don't, their price doesn't drop down. But there's 100 riders out there right now not signed. They're the poor buggers that have to take sort of minimum wages to get a deal. A lot of them have to take minimum with bonuses for going well. And that's going to be very much the go for the end of the season. Unfortunately, because of this whole compacted COVID season and the sponsorship challenges a lot of these teams have had, plus with a couple of teams falling over. So it's made it very, very awkward. But I don't really think the big names will lose much. And the young stars won't.
I reckon they will.
Range.
No, I reckon they will. I reckon you are wrong.
We'll see. That's not what I'm hearing. I'm talking to some of the teams, and it's the middle ones that they're now getting for the bottom price.
I just don't think they're going to, particularly after COVID, they're going to really calculate their budgets and just say, well, it's not.
I don't know many. I don't know many of the riders you're talking about, senior riders who aren't already contracted, aren't on the second year, and with another year to go. I don't know many of them that are even chasing a contract.
Now, Dan, I reckon you're probably right in terms, like, if we go into next year and it's still an interrupted season, which the way things are going in Europe, there's no change going into next year. You know, and it's interesting, isn't it? Like, everybody is so hopeful that 2021 is going to be okay. It's almost like people put a date on it, 1st of January, things are going to be better next year. But all indications, all indicators show that nothing's going to change just yet.
No.
So I reckon that's when what you're saying really may come into play, that if we're going to have another truncated season, that's when you've got to think about the big dollars that are getting paid. The sponsors are going to be hurting even more so. And I think everyone's probably going to have to take a cut next time if it continues like it has this year.
It's going to be interesting. Hey, we said in the title of the video, we've got a very special guest coming up soon, Rory Sutherland. It's his last week of his career, so we're going to have plenty of great questions to ask him. Before we get to that, John, do you want to kick off with your pitch for Mitchelton Wines?
I certainly will. The beautiful Mitchelton Winery, one of Australia's favourite wineries and a place of escape. Experience the history, the beauty and the serenity of the beautiful Goulburn Valley at your own pace. Looking over the vineyards and the iconic tower and staying at the new hotel. Relaxing by that magnificent pool you see there. Recharging in the day spa like those couple. Exploring the seasonal menu at the Muse, where you can see
that's not the Muse, that picture, is it?
That's the bank in Heathcote, different town altogether, but that's fine. It looks nice. Jerry does.
Well, I've been running that picture for ages. I need to change it.
That's okay. Yeah. It's a
Sorry,
beautiful
mate.
spot. That's all right. And you can stop by the Providor, touring in the cellars, and of course tasting the signature wines. It has become the popular venue for weddings and major functions. And there's a happy couple and another happy couple. Well, I think they're happy. I can't see whether he's smiling. I reckon he is, though.
Looks like he's about to draw some guns or something.
He's got a kilt. I think he's got a kilt on. Anyway.
They're negotiating the prenup. Bringing out
you
the
looking at me,
prenup.
punk?
And of course, there's the amazing Aboriginal Art Gallery, which, as I said, is world class. And as I mentioned, there it is. There it is again. I thought you would show the other photo of the beautiful Land Cruiser, the $10,000 Land Cruiser with the $1.3 million paint job. And we got that photo. There's one photo painting in there that was just been valued at $2 million.
Yeah, I don't know. If I was Jerry, I'd sort of be keen to keep that on the down low because you don't want to create a heist.
Okay. Well, I was going there with the trailer tomorrow. Actually,
yeah, well, that's what I mean. Imagine if that gets nicked.
Guys, I just realised how long it's been since I've been on with you two because the Land Rover's up to 1.3 million. I think it was 550 last time I was on.
That's right. You've been along. Well, we keep asking you and you keep giving us the lemonade, as they say in the classics.
The lemonade, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, well. All right. Now it's time for a quick word from our great mates at Bike Exchange.
Look at this bike. You think it's just a bike, right? But it's not. It's a bike 374 people are looking at. This guy, this girl, them, all looking at it. People from here, there, and wherever this is. People that are looking for a bike. Or just a piece of it. Amateurs, semi-amateurs, and pro-amateurs. This guy wants this bike, but with this crank and these bars. This could be the perfect match. But not this one. This girl has a bike to sell, and thousands of people might purchase it. Eyes on Bikes help grow small businesses. His, hers, yours, and the latest data and insights help those businesses keep moving. We are the world's #1 bike marketplace, with over 500,000 products and 900 brands, where buyers and sellers are brought together in a place where a bike is never just a bike. Bike Exchange, where the world buys, sells, learns, and rides.
Thanks again to our great mates at Bike Exchange. Now, Rory
it's like
Sutherland.
a good wine, isn't it? Like it just keeps getting better and better, like a very good Mitchelton wine.
Yeah, it's a good ad. Now, Rory's on his way. He reckons he's technically dyslexic, but I reckon he's going to be able to work out. And I can see he's in the studio now. Rory, how are you, mate? You've done it. You've worked out
Gentlemen.
how to click the link.
I figured
Your
out
audio's working.
Figured out technology in the tired state that I'm in somewhere in Spain. Who the hell knows where I am?
Well, I was gonna
Great to see you, mate. Great to see you.
Yeah,
mate.
nice to
You're
see
looking
everybody.
well.
Yeah, I don't know. After this race, it's a little bit grayer. You know, the beard's getting a little bit longer. There's some dark rings under the eyes, but that's all part of the game, as we all know.
how are the emotions, mate? You're about to embark on the final week.
Yeah, it's. I wouldn't say it's too emotional. I think, you know, me personally, I got to the stage this year where I think I'm very lucky to be able to choose when I retire and when enough is enough. You know, a lot of guys I think don't get that opportunity. It's kind of forced upon you. So in that respect, I kind of knew this was going to be the last race, and to be blatantly honest, some of these days I'm like, thank God I don't have to do this anymore. And that's really nice, because that means you get to race the race the way you want to do it, and I like to, you know, it doesn't matter if it's raining or windy or whatever. I just take every day as it comes, and you know it's actually going to end. There's an end in sight.
How's the buzz in the group? Dan Martin's obviously in some pretty good form. Another impressive ride yesterday. There must be a bit of buzz going into the final week with the Israel Startup Nation boys.
Yeah, definitely. You know, it's it's something new for this team specifically. You know, obviously the team, the signings that are coming in the future, it's still progressing to get to the higher level. But Dan, you know, is a good friend of mine as well, and we've kind of it was interesting before the Tour de France. The team decided that he was going to go to the Tour, but he was going to try for stage wins and that kind of thing. And Dan, I had a chat with him before then, and we talked quite a lot. And I said, Dan, mate, like, this is a great opportunity for the Vuelta, you know? And he's like, really? And I'm like, yeah. I said, you can be flying at the Vuelta because you can use the Tour. You know, you don't have to completely bury yourself at the Tour. You can ride the Gruppetto a few days and things like that. And then for the Vuelta, you get your head switched on and you've got these kilometers in the legs, which a lot of guys don't have if you didn't do the Tour. And I said, it's a great opportunity for him, and maybe one of the only opportunities for him to get on the podium of a Grand Tour. So I'm glad he listened to me on that one, because it's obviously working quite well. But yeah, the feeling in the group, we've got a really mixed group of experienced and inexperienced riders, which actually is really good vibe, because the older guys can help the younger guys get through their first Grand Tour, explain to them how it's working, really help them to develop more as riders. And yeah, we've only got 6 more days to hopefully get Dan up onto the podium.
Scooter?
Rory, what's the atmosphere back like in Israel? So what sort of communication are you getting from the authorities that obviously that are in charge of the team? Because obviously there's a whole market there that's just waiting for it to happen.
Yeah, it's difficult on the rider's point of view here, because we don't. I think there's the language barrier that we don't understand, obviously, Hebrew. As much as I'd like to say I do, I know nothing. So we can't see the press and what's coming out there. It's not kind of translated for us. I know there's been a big push for the team. Obviously, we have an Israeli guy who's in this team, Omar, who's doing his first Grand Tour, and there's never been an Israeli in the Vuelta before. So that's kind of been the big project from the team from the word go. So hopefully it'll generate, like it has in Great Britain, like it has in Australia, by having national teams, like a connection to a country, or the UAE or Bahrain, to really help that the next run of riders, to make it a bigger sport in the country, and obviously at the end of the day get more people on bikes.
Well, I know that the Astana team was a really good tool to combat the film Borat. So
yeah.
It was a real positive effect. Iffy?
I thought they just reinforced the movie Borat. But anyway, we'll just keep moving on that one.
Advertising space on the Mankini was a bit of a problem, though. That was the first team kit they were going to go with.
Mate, it's still there in the peloton. Now we can't see people yelling on the side of the roads on climbs because they're all blocked off. But you see a few Mankinis out there every now and again, the bright green ones, and it's not always a pleasant sight, gentlemen.
I'm told the one Borat wore was actually Vinokurov's night sleepwear, but I don't know if that's true. I don't know if it's true. But mate, Rory, it's great to catch up with you again. It's been a little while, but I just wanted to touch on your career. A lot of the some of our listeners are all new to the sport, but you come out of the Rabobank Young Development Group, and you were a pro with Rabobank back in 2005. Then you spent, I think it was 6 years in America. You were with HealthNet, 2007 to 2012. I'll go back and ask you about that in a minute. And then you came back to Europe. You were with Saxo for a couple of years, then on to Movistar, which you had a great time with Movistar, then UAE, and now Israel. But that 6 years in the States, how did you find that?
It was amazing. It was a really amazing experience for me at the time, I guess at the place I was at in my life then as well. And I really thrived on that environment. I don't think I'd still be racing at 38 years old in the World Tour if I hadn't have had that kind of block there in the middle. It kind of was it's real racing, but it's different than the slog day in, day out of European life and living. But I made so many good friends and learned so many things there. And I actually learned there, I think one of the biggest things I learned with racing in the US is obviously you're in a smaller pond, a bigger fish in a smaller pond, where it's the other way around in Europe. So that my job there was to be the winner. I was there to try and win the races, to win the GC in races. And the good thing is that would never have happened in Europe. So what that taught me is, okay, so this is what a GC leader needs. I know what I need. I know what I feel. I know what I need from my teammates. So I think in terms of development for me personally, that when I came back to Europe again, I know what the guy is feeling who I'm looking after in the race. I know what they need. Some people have different needs than others, but I think that really carved kind of a job for me, or one that I really love doing when I'm here. And I think one that with the teams I've been on and the riders that I've looked after has been a pretty respectful role,
Scooter?
Does that lead... so I don't know if you've made the announcement or not, and apologies if you already have, but so what is the next step? What does that lead to? A DS position? Or?
I thought this was a job interview here.
Mate, you can come on anytime.
Anytime, mate.
It's just free. It's free, though. It's not a very good job.
Doesn't pay much. But hey, we'd love to have you, mate. Yeah.
No, it's we're working on things at the moment. I approach things a little differently than, I guess, the standard professional. I've been outside of Australia, even though being Australian, I left Australia 20 years ago. My wife's from the US. We've lived in Girona in Spain for the last 8 years. The kids go to school there. The kids are super happy. And, the kids, even my 7-year-old daughter speaks fluently 3 languages, and that's something you can't get anywhere else. So firstly, when I decided to retire, what do you do? Your wife's from the States. I'm from Australia. Kids are happy. It's not about us. It's about the kids. So we're, first and foremost, we're going to stay in Europe. And then the other side is that I never, ever wanted to be a sport director. I never wanted to be one, and I still don't want to be one.
Why is that?
Not that I don't respect them, but I just spent, when I look at my son's 11 years old, I've spent his entire life doing 110 to 150 days away from home. And my wife's been a single parent, like Scott understands how it works. Dan, you've been away from your family, and Iffy, when you were racing as well, it's like you guys understand what the mother of the household has to deal with, basically being a single parent when you're away. And then when I'm home, she's still a single parent because she has to look after me. But basically, so I think it's not, in my mind, it's not fair on her to keep that going. I actually want her to thrive a bit more and have opportunities for herself. And I want to be there for the family. So I've actually turned down, I think, 3-4 sport director jobs already, because it's just at this stage of my life is not what I want to do. But right now I'm pretty close to a job within this organization, one that allows me to stay at home more, and one that allows me to be effective in what I would consider myself and what the team considers me to be good at, which is basically dealing with some of the younger riders, teams based in Girona, really trying to fill the void between, I guess, what a sport director does and what the rider's reality is about what they're feeling and thinking. and just try to close that gap to get a bit more of a cohesive group within a team.
It's a good point you've raised there, Rory. Do you think that there's a need within cycling teams, that sort of bridge role between the riding group and management, so that there's a collective voice amongst the riders and they're not having to voice concerns or opinions directly with management? Because depending on the team, the managers might not take that advice or that feedback that well.
And that's one of the, honestly, I think when you speak to a lot of guys who have been active in the peloton in the last 10 years, like myself, or what Matty Heyman was obviously till the end, is that 3 years ago, cycling is completely different than what it is today. The way it's raced in the peloton, the age of riders that are winning Grand Tours and all these stages, it's a completely different a different sport, basically. And that's not saying it's worse or better. It's just different. It's evolved. And then obviously with the pandemic, that's changed things a whole nother level as well. Personally, I think what's lacking now in a lot of the teams is exactly what you said, is that there's a gap between the reality of what a sport director is used to doing to what actually is happening today in the peloton. And having somebody in the middle, and again, I use Matt Heyman as an example, that he retired just as it was kind of within the changing period. So I'm sure he's being very effective in the team that he's in now, to be able to bridge the gap and to be able to actually have honest communication. The biggest problem you have there, and I'm sure all you guys understand and know this, and this is a problem that I had at UAE, is that it's very hard to change a mentality. It's very hard to change something that someone's been doing for so many years. Not to tell them that's wrong, but just to say, hey, let's progress, let's move forward. We have to always move forward. And I think that's when you see the state of Spanish cycling and Italian cycling, and honestly French cycling, is that they're still stuck. They're still stuck. They're kind of behind the eight ball of the old mentality that's there. They try to change a few little things, but they'll never go all in to do a proper cleanup and a proper change. And UAE was like that. They asked me to help them with certain things to bridge the gap. I expressed my ideas, and they decided that those ideas were not their ideas, and they didn't want to do that, and that's okay. That's their prerogative, but don't bloody ask me that. But the big difference is that here on this team, on Israel Startup Nation, being a new team from a new country in cycling, it really is, and the people involved who have been in cycling before, but some haven't been, they're very open-minded. So they're very open-minded to change. And that's, honestly, I was considering retiring last year. And when I had a conversation with Kjell Karlström, the general manager here last year, I was like, I could feel that he valued my opinion. And that was, that was huge for me. It's not about what the money was. It was about that you're being valued, that if somebody asks you that your opinion, they actually want to talk about it. It's not just straight away, no, we're not doing this. It's like, let's talk about it and work together.
Scotty?
Well, it's interesting. So a lot of people may not understand that, you rode for the UAE team and they may think that that's a certain organisation, but that's an old school Italian management team that then took over the UAE sponsorship, isn't it? And Movistar, very similar. It's one of the oldest teams in the peloton. So both those teams are very much sort of old school mentality. Which is,
but Movistar, interesting enough, I'm still phenomenal friends with. I had so much fun in that team. It was such a great organisation. I have a lot of respect for them. But I think if you even look at, 2019 to 2020 with those guys, you can really have a look at you just need to look at the roster of the team and the age. They've gone through a transition, or they're in the middle of a transition of the Valverdes. Nairo moves on. Alejandro is coming to the end of his career. Some of the statesmen of the team are coming, they're in their mid-30s or closer to my age as well. Is that there's a transition and there's a huge run of new riders that are coming through, and that transition's taking, it's changed and it takes time to develop. But I think they've realised that, and they're starting to work on I guess evolving within the sport and coming out of that old kind of mentality.
It was great, actually, Rory, to hear you talk about this role that you're going to take on, because Dan and I were having an in-depth today on exactly what we believe is needed in a few teams, and the role we'll talk about is the role you were saying you were doing. So we think it's fantastic. Great idea, mate.
Well, just for the listeners, so explain what the old school mentality is, because some of them that aren't on the inner sanctum, they might not understand.
Yeah, I think when you consider the old mentality is that these days things in cycling, it's the big emphasis is on nutrition, aerodynamics, and knowledge of the race. Technological advances. You look at some of the biggest teams, and I think Ineos has been they've done such a good job at pushing world cycling. They've made a huge change in it to change the old ideals. But it's like anything, guys. It's like if you have an iPhone from 10 years ago, it's completely different than what it is now. You know, the amount of storage you have on it, or how good the camera is, and if you don't evolve with it. And so when we're talking about the old cycling, we're not going back to the doping years. We're not talking about any of that. We're just talking about the pure mentality of the sport directors are like, oh, well, I trained for 7 hours a day, so you need to do the same thing. You need to do all these big base miles, but it doesn't work that way because the racing has changed. So there's a lot of wonderful things, and I keep using the examples of the Spanish, the French, and the Italians, because it's the historical base of cycling. And they're very difficult. They're wonderful people, but they're very difficult to look outside the box and try new things, because it's just ingrained that that's what we do. And that's kind of what you get with, like Scott mentioned, UAE is basically came from the Lamprey team with Cerrone. And, I remember talking to Cerrone there, who was world champion, I think, in 1982. And he said, yeah, aerodynamics are nothing. You guys just have to try harder. And I was like, yeah, actually, that's not quite right anymore. So, yeah.
We've got a comment from Diane Hannon says, I'm interested in the comment, RE old school mindset in UAE, yet they had one of the youngest winners ever in the Tour de France.
Yes. Now, what is the best catalyst for change in the world is failure, I think. So when you, specifically in professional sport, when do you get change in an organization is when you fail. You fail and everyone goes, well, shit, this doesn't work. So we need to do something different, or now we're behind. So how do we get back in front? And you've seen it from many teams. You've seen it from, from the first years of Sky, and they were like, okay, this didn't work. So how do we evolve and move up, keep moving forward? And everyone else stays in the same, I guess, keeps doing the same thing. And UAE was like that to begin with. And every year they've improved a lot of things. From the year the first year I was there to the second year was a huge change. They've changed a lot of things within the organization. They've done a great job at a lot of it. Luckily, they have the money to be able to afford to do certain things. The youngest winner of the Tour de France and definitely the modern era, I remember Tadej Pogacar, who I'm really good friends with. And I remember he came to one of the training camps with us there in Sicily, and the kid's just phenomenal. Like I think you could put him on an old steel bike with wooden wheels and he would still win. Like, really, the aerodynamics and everything makes sense.
Cerrone's old jersey, put him in Cerrone's
basically
old
you could. Yeah. He's phenomenal. But they've improved a lot of things there, which is fantastic. They've evolved, they've moved forward. But yeah, the best riders with the most talent still can win in not the best environments.
So it's more developing the rest of the crew if the environment's right, as a collective. Do you think one of the biggest issues or the way forward is to involve riders more as shareholders, particularly when it comes to like old school? There's a race plan, director gets up in a bus and he goes, right, hey guys, this is what we're going to do. Bang, 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 these are your jobs. And it very much feels like you're at high school again. Whereas in the modern cycling, if you can give riders buy-in to the race tactics and also chemistry should be a key focus. There was an amazing story I heard from Matty Keenan a couple of days ago, and it was from the Giro, and he said he did an interview with Luke Roberts, and he noticed that Jai Hindley on the training camp 2 months before the Giro was very relaxed, playing ping pong with the boys and having a laugh and whatever. Then when they got to the Giro, he was very stiff, very nervous the first 3 or 4 days. he said to him on the sprint stage, he said, "Righto, Jai, your job tomorrow is one thing." And he goes, "Oh, what do you want me to do? Help with the lead out or whatever." He goes, No. I want you to go to breakfast. I want you to rip the piss out of one of your teammates." He goes, "What?" He goes, "Just go to breakfast, rip the piss out of one of your teammates. That is your number one job for the day." And he went to breakfast and real awkward, tried to rip the piss. Everyone started laughing. He started laughing. From that day forward, he was a different bike rider. He wasn't stressed. He was relaxed. And it's so much about understanding that every rider is different.
Yeah.
Every rider works differently. So what works for a Pogačar might not work for, his teammates. And you've got to adapt and have a goal of building chemistry, building respect, giving riders buy-in. Do you think that's sort of some of the things that need to progress forward?
I think it's a huge thing, and I think that's why I'm really happy in the organisation I am here, is because it is very progressive. It's open-minded, it's progressive. So a quick rundown of what we did. This team did the Tour de France, their first Tour de France. Huge amount of stress, obviously, for the team. Huge amount of media. Most of it went horribly wrong. Partly, I think, because of the group of riders that were there collectively. Not because they're bad riders or not good people. It's just if a couple guys are not on a good time or don't actually really want to be there, then it changes the whole dynamic of the group, and that's a huge problem. What we did when we came here, so 2 days before the Vuelta, I said to the sport director, I'm like, well, first I'd spoken to him the week before, and I said, let's all have a sit down. So there's basically 4 sport directors here. One of them's Zach Dempster, who everyone knows well. And we all sat down, and I got Dan Martin in on the meeting, and we sat down and we just laid it on the table. And I was like, us as Australians, we do that. Europeans don't. They hold things back. They don't, it's not that they're not truthful. It's just that they don't like conflict, a lot of them. Whereas we like constructive criticism, and we like to, if there's an issue as Australians, we like to sit down on the table and let's bloody deal with it. Like, why not just deal with it, and and then we move on and we'll go to a new place. So we had to sit down, and like I said, luckily with this organization, as opposed to the previous, for me anyway, is that being valued and your opinion being valued, and people realizing that you're not after their job, you're all striving for a common goal. And that was the first thing I always said I said in this meeting. I was like, to the directors, I'm like, guys, I had an offer to be a director. I said, no, I don't want to do it. I'm not here for your job. I'm not saying you can't do your job. Let's find a way to work together in a better way. We have Dan Martin right here. Ask him what he needs. If Dan doesn't want to hear who's attacked in the last 2K on a climb, he's there. He has instincts. He's an amazing athlete. He knows what he's doing. So this is the information we need in the race. This is the feeling we need in the group. And we need to stay, one of the big things, and my big job here is that physically, 1, because of my age, and 2, because after I broke my leg last December, I'm not the rider I was before. But one of the big things that I was brought to this race for was not 100% in the race situation. It's everything externally as well. So it's when you get into the bus. It's when you are at the dinner table. Is to really have that vibe of the riders, so that everyone, even though we're suffering and we're having hard moments together, everybody is suffering together. And exactly what you said, Dan, of like having a joke, everyone having a laugh, laughing at yourself, and really that connection of the staff and the riders coming together. And that's, I think, one of the big reasons it's working so well here.
One other thing that has always amazed me with cycling, right, is in any other sport, all right, say if it's NBA, say the team don't go too well, sack the coach. Or if it's AFL, sack the coach. If a team at the Tour de France don't perform, people aren't going, hey, get rid of the DS, What it sort of says is like the evolution for the role as a DS is you're a manager of people. Not as obviously you need tactics and all that sort of stuff, but you are a person manager more than anything, and the ability to understand the psychology of the sport. You look at a Dave Brailsford, right? He's given people the reasons why he's so good is because he's had a passion for sports psychology from the start. He gets into the mindset of it, and I think that as you've found, if you're in a team that is very much stuck in their old ways. there might be some red flags, particularly if it's about the evolution and the potential to grow. So based on everything that you said, you must be pretty excited for next year when you get the likes of a Chris Froome into the team, not just for, say if he doesn't win the Tour or whatever, but that effect that he's going to have on the development of those younger guys coming through must be huge.
And I think that's one of the big steps why Sylvan Adams, the owner, decided to hire Chris. There's a risk involved with his return and his age, obviously. But what I think he brings to the table in terms of the experience and the way that people look up to him for what he's achieved, and definitely the kind of person that he is, because he is a very down to earth. He's not this big. He doesn't put himself across as a superstar. Like, he wants to have a conversation with you, he wants to have a laugh. He doesn't consider himself above anybody else, and I think that's going to make a huge impact. One, on the team, and two, on the marketability of the team in Israel, to really kind of tick the boxes of what Sylvan Adams is trying to do, which is develop a sport in a country, and to get rid of the politics and use sport to build the bridges. That's his whole aim. So, I think we're definitely going to. It's exciting for me, especially with the guys that I see that they've hired, and going back, Dan, to what you were saying about the psychology of it, one of the things they do interviews with the riders that they're going to hire, and if they don't jive with the idea of where the team's going and open-mindedness and a positive, it's not just based on what numbers you can produce. It's and that's kind of an Ineos style of doing things, of like, this guy does 6 watts per kilo for blah 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 blah. It's like, yeah, but he's not a good teammate, or he's not the best person, and he's a bit of an individual. Whereas here it's like, okay, this guy's physically has the ability, but at the same time, who is he as a person? Can he fit into the group? Can we? Because you guys know, the success of Mitchelton Scott, a lot of it is because of that group, that bond between the riders, that they push each other, and they go into war every day to die for each other. And a lot of teams, you don't see that, and the teams that do get that together, that's where you're successful.
Scooter?
I remember a rider at the World Championship, part of the team going to the World Championships years ago, that came up with a number one day. We started training, we're in Germany, and he said it's, can't remember exactly the number. He said, it's 127 days. And we're like, what, till the World Championships? He said, no, until we go home.
Oh. So he's counting that down. That's not a very good for the group, is it?
No, and that was quite cancerous between the group straight away. Like, it was this negative approach to, he doesn't really want to be there. We've got the World Championships coming up on the track, but he's counting to when he gets to go on the plane to go home again. So, and a lot of the teams back then were quite young, and I guess the leadership of the team wasn't there. We didn't have an older statesman to come in and say, whoa, hey, buddy, pull your head in. You can think whatever you want, but don't contaminate the rest of the mindset of this squad. And he wasn't riding in the team pursuit; he was doing the individual pursuit. Whereas we were as a group trying to, collectively come together, and that was quite a negative thing to have.
And that's exactly what I'm trying to stay away from in this organisation, and that's what we were doing from day one here. Even with all the younger and experienced riders, I've been like, every day we sit down, just simple little things like the road book. So for the whole race being as long as it is, it's like, it's thick. It's it's an encyclopedia. I said to the guys, I'm like, don't look at the last week. Just every day, we take it a day at a time. You're going to have a good day, you're going to have a crap day, but we take it a day at a time. We move forward slowly. And one of my roles here is to stop that negativity from festering and getting worse, because once it's contagious. Negativity is very contagious, and once people go down that rabbit hole and get started, it just keeps going. And that's in this team. That's what happened in the Tour, is that they had a couple guys who were not having a good time, which is fair enough, the way they're feeling after crashes and everything, but no one stopped them from keeping on going down, and then you drag everyone with you.
Is that been even harder in 2020 to combat that negative sort of mindset, because a lot of riders and staff have been under so much stress this year more than ever?
I think it's very underestimated what the pandemic, especially in Europe, has done to a lot of people. When you take advantage, you think about the riders based in Italy, France, and Spain and Andorra, is that we were literally indoors for 7 weeks. and what that does to somebody mentally is huge. You can't see it. The staff then, they're doing the same thing, and then when they can finally go to work, we have some staff who have basically been on the road for 3.5 months.
Yeah.
So it's just, the stress levels of an entire season, which is normally, this long, it's the same stress, but it's put into this small box that everything happens in these 3-month period. We've had 3 Grand Tours overlapping. We've had classics. We've had everything. And the stress levels are huge, I think, for everybody.
And also a thing that needs to be factored in when teams do their reviews at the end of the season and they're looking at the numbers and all this sort of stuff, they've also got to factor in every rider, as we said earlier, is different. Some of these guys that were in lockdown, you've got to also factor in the ones that are in lockdown by themselves, the ones that are in lockdown with partners, because the ones particularly that were in lockdown by themselves, I think there's some scarring that's happened, particularly some of the guys in Girona. That we're in there for 3 months.
Look at Bewley. Bewley's already messed up in the head, and now look at him now. He's even worse.
Exactly.
Mate, I had a semi-rough time, but I have a house with a backyard. So we had, a place to go outside. I had at that stage, my kids were 6 and 10 years old. We had schooling every day that was happening online with them. We have access to computers and stuff like that. We're lucky enough to have that stuff in the house. And we've got I have an injury that I was coming back from, so we can train. So we're on the ergo every day. That we have a plan. I can't even imagine what people went through who were by themselves in an apartment, and not just professional athletes, but the general public.
We've got a comment from Sam Bewley. Rory can be intelligent. Good chat, fellas. And then he wrote, "Love
you." Talking about somebody that's obviously still sitting in a house by himself.
We've got a few other comments. Tom says, "It's fantastic that so many Aussies are at the forefront of team development and evolving of culture. Makes me so proud. Thank you so much for the thought-provoking commentary, Rory."
Lovely.
And we've got another comment from Sam again. She says, "Does Rory have an opinion on the experienced riders implementing protests and speaking up for the peloton? TV work for Rory. Seems very comfortable in front of the camera and articulate."
Ooh,
getting a lot of love, mate.
Samantha, I'm married, Samantha, so but call me,
What do you think of the protest?
I think it was done in a wrong way, to be honest, which I think is spur of the moment emotional thing. But I think I've had a lot of chats about this in the last few days because me being, I guess, one of the elders in the peloton and one that's first language is in English, and I don't obviously have a problem in speaking my mind or my opinion, hopefully in a good, constructive way. The protest was valid. It just wasn't maybe done in the right way. I wasn't necessarily part of that decision. You kind of have to go with the flow in some parts of it. But at the same time, the peloton does not have confidence in the CPA, which is our union. We haven't had it for a long time, so there's no unity there. And that's a lot of them are working very hard on things, but we as the riders keep getting told that we're being represented by this organisation that we don't agree with and we didn't choose. If we didn't choose who's in charge and we weren't allowed to choose, then stuff starts to go wrong. When the confidence isn't there, then people kind of try to do things for themselves. So the protest, I think, was very valid, but I think it could have been a bit more constructive. But maybe that's a generator for some continued slow change as well.
Rory, sorry, Dan.
You're right.
I see the possibility of an opportunity here because in terms of, who has the power in the sport, the UCI would like to have it. They've never had the power. It's ASO that have the broadcast rights to the Tour de France. They have the most money, the most revenue. They have the most power. Mm-hmm. There was a big battle between the UCI and the ASO a couple of years back. ASO wasn't really much of a battle for them because they just continued to win that battle. RCS, the Giro d'Italia organisers, they've jumped on board. They've got a bit of a tyrant at the top of their organisation as well.
Don't get me started on that bloke.
No, I just wanted to throw that in just for you, Dan.
Yeah.
But I feel that what's happened this year is that some of that absolute power has become a little bit more vulnerable in terms of the race organisation because you know what? If the race can't go ahead, the race organisation for whatever that event is has no power whatsoever. Is there now an opportunity perhaps for the riders to actually get a proper union organised and actually take some of this power back and have control from the teams and the riders' perspective?
I think a lot of it's in process at the moment. There might be some stuff, I've heard little whispers here and there might be some stuff coming out today about that. But we have been pushing within the riders' organisation more and more for the one vote per rider, which is what it bloody should have been since the beginning. Not these like package votes because of how many people. One guy in France who's in charge of things, who no one voted in there. He can vote for 1,000 French professionals, whereas Australia, we have 3 votes. Doesn't make it. It's not correct, and that's the big thing the riders are pushing, and that will be that'll be a catalyst for change. The difficult thing is the guys that are pushing it are the guys in their last years of racing. And at some point, like Adam Hansen, I've spoken to him about it, and he's like, bloody hell, guys, like I've been trying this for years and years and years. And he goes, I'm just tired. He goes, I'm tired of fighting things. At the end of the day, some of the younger guys don't get it and they don't give a shit. They will in the future, but they really don't care right now because they just want to race their bikes and win. So I think it is a good moment. And I think something that there was a document that we as the riders put out yesterday, which was not from the CPA. It was from us, from the riders, written by the riders. And that was saying how good the race organisation here is in the Vuelta, comparatively to how the ASO handle things in the Tour de France and other races. How the Giro d'Italia was run, and that it was a complete debacle. So what the organisation here has done, I think, is really listened to the scientific data regarding the pandemic. We as the riders, we've commented this a lot. We've never seen such a safe race for us, actually dedicated at us. And why is it safer than normal? It's because they have to, otherwise the race won't happen. So they've had their hand forced. But like we had one rider who had a temperature one night. He had a fever after the race. And so everyone basically shits themselves, of course. That's how it works now. The very next morning at 7 a.m., the organisation, the people from that run the lab, which is a moving lab, they have a massive truck and it goes to every single day. And they're at the start, they're at the finishes, they're everywhere. And the lab, they can process it all right there and then. They turned up at the hotel, they did a rapid test on him, negative. Then they did another test at the same time. They took it away to the lab to do it properly. Also negative. And then they said, right, because you guys are all involved with him, what we need to do is, instead of wait for the rest day, we want to test the entire staff and riders. So that's another 30 people. So yesterday morning before the stage, we had to go 10 minutes earlier. Boom, into the lab, into a big white tent. Everyone got tested again. And 3 hours later, all the results are back and they're all negative. So this organisation, and even on the climbs, it's blocked. Like you can't go up there as a fan. They're actually taking it seriously. Whereas, to be honest, you look at the ASO and look at Lyon, the stage into Lyon, it was a bloody joke. Like it was like nothing had ever happened.
No mask and flashing brown eyes.
No, exactly. And the same with the Giro. The Giro was a complete and utter joke, and it's money driven, of course, like bloody always. But they've done we have to, and I said this within the group of riders, we have a representative from every single team. And I said it to them, I'm like, guys, we can always go at the organizations and have a go at them for doing things wrong, but we need to be proactive and positive at the same time for when they do things right. And we've been doing a big push on that in this race, and it's been phenomenal. So I think there is a lot of change coming from that, and like I said, there is a shift of power in process, shall we say?
Well, what about if you involved the team management as well for this collective voice? Because I mean, they've got their own battles that they're trying to be coming together with Valon and all these sort of things. It sort of needs to be like just a real quality unit, start afresh, because if you keep having these battles back and forth with the CPA, as you know, it's just not going to get anywhere. And if the younger riders particularly go, shit, hang on, my whole team part of this union, or, there's going to be a lot more power, because as you said, ASO, they've got power, but what is their product? It's teams racing each other across their race route.
So if they're not racing, there's no money, basically. Exactly. But at the end of the day, we get forced. I think there's too many steps, as in, if the head of the Francais team says, I don't care, you guys are racing or you're not getting paid, then you have to go race. You can't do it. We had a couple of guys the other day when we did a small protest at the start, and the Spanish guy's like, oh, let's just race, guys. Let's race. I want to be on TV. I don't want to deal with this kind of stuff. It's like, dude, if you want to get there, then to create change, we need to create some sort of, movement within what we're doing. But I do.
Well, that's where you've got to start the chant then, like scab, scab, scab.
That stuff I stay away from.
Matt Randell has put in a comment. This is a good one. He said, Rory's so right, and what he says chimes in exactly with my experiences at Movistar. From day one, someone else in the team, far more established than me, was after my job. Bloody nightmare. In any case, Israel are extremely lucky to have Rory on board.
I was I was the one after his job. That's the problem.
But I was going to say, you're spot on there, Rory, because it looks like that next year things aren't going to change too much as far as this pandemic is concerned in Europe. There's not going to be a vaccine. So the racing could well go ahead, but it'll only go ahead if it's like the Vuelta, if it's run without crowds so that it's safe and it's a TV, it's for people to watch on TV so the sport can be seen globally, but not to attract people, because attracting people is what's causing the issue. You can't tell me that France, especially Tour de France, but in Italy as well, that people were coming around and going back. There were no masks on people. They were then going and spreading it all around their country. It's just absolutely ridiculous nightmare.
And that's where the Vuelta, like I said, the Vuelta's done such a good job, mate. Like, to be honest, you have to say how well organized it's been and how good a job they've done. And we know that it's because of money, but if it's because of money, but it's in our benefit, that's fantastic. And if we have a platform to be able to do our sport, and the guys that don't have a job can try and perform, and that's it's a different way of cycling next year. The Belgians think that nothing ever was really wrong, so they just kept doing all the races. Now Belgium's the worst country in Europe. But in Spain, it's been implemented from the word go that everyone wears a mask at all times when you leave your house or into a shop or anything. Mate, I was in Liège. We were staying in Holland, in Maastricht, and I forgot my phone charger, so I put my mask on, walked down the street to the shop, and not one person wore a mask. And it was like, and now they're in the shit as well. So no one knows what's really going on, but in terms of safety, it's I think what they're doing here is a great example to be able to put forward for next year.
Mate, getting back to your career, what do you think has been the keys to having longevity in the sport?
Changing where you are, changing environments, changing race schedules. Me, luckily and unluckily, from the situations I've had in my career, I ended up in the United States. But that, I guess, got me the longevity within the sport. Because it was a different perspective. It's like doing the same job. If you're doing the same job every year and you've done, I was talking to Dan Martin, and he's, a couple of years younger than me, but not that much, and he's done 13 Liège-Bastogne-Lièges. And I'm like, do you want to do something different? He goes, yeah, I'm kind of sick of Liège. I'm like, you're probably quite right there. That's quite a lot of them. You've won it before, so how do you get motivated for the same thing every single year? So I think constant change, stick with an organization for a while, but I'm lucky enough in my, I think one of the big things for an Australian, and where some of the guys that are in an Australian team like Mitchelton Scott or Ineos, these purely English speaking teams, they don't get a different perspective on life. There's tons of the guys, and I'm not just using the Mitchelton guys, but I'm using that as an example because a lot of them are Australians, but none of them speak a word of Spanish, and they've lived in Spain for 5 years. I went to Movistar where no one spoke English. Now I speak Spanish. I went to Rabobank when there was, on the under-23 team, and there was 19 Dutch and Belgians, and I was the only native English speaker. I learned Dutch. So now I know, I've come out with languages as well. So it's all those kind of experiences that keep you going and keep you moving.
Scooter?
I imagine you speak American too.
Oh, a little bit. I try not to. Depends what happens. Depends what happens tomorrow in the election, eh?
Well, yeah, that's going to be a big challenge. But is that so? I don't know the backstory, but so did you, when you were based in the States, is that where you met your wife?
Yeah, no, I met her over there, and she was lucky enough to find me, come rolling in. She was actually the one girl that I met there that, you know, when I said that I was Australian, she didn't give a shit. You know, she was all the others like, oh, you're an Aussie. I love your accent.
They go nuts. Yeah,
And
they
she
get you
was
to
like,
speak sentences and
you like throw a shrimp on the barbie. I'm like, you don't actually use that word. So
I had someone tell me it was a long drive. Said you're from Australia. So, gee, that's a long drive. I'm like, well, yeah, it would be if it was possible. But
I had my wife's her grandmother, when I first spoke to her, she goes, your accent. I'm like, yeah. She goes, where on the east coast of the US are you from? I'm like, West Coast. I'm on the East Coast, but the East Coast of a different part of a different continent.
Where were you based? Where were you based in the States?
I was in California for a bit, in Southern California, and then we bought a house in Colorado. So we were there for a good couple of years, yeah.
Was it Boulder?
Yeah, Boulder, yeah.
All right, no, sorry, Dan. The only reason I asked that is because I've got a connection to Boulder, as Johnny knows. I actually spent some time in jail.
What's her name?
No. I spent some time in jail. So it's my claim to fame of being in Colorado.
Just throw that little chestnut out.
No one knew that one.
Completely innocent, mate. Don't worry.
Right, yeah.
It's like
he's never been back.
Shawshank Prison. Everyone was innocent, same as me.
Right.
Hey, is your wife concerned about what's going on in the States at the moment? Because, I'm looking at news.com and it's like riots pending and, after the election, either way, it's going to be chaos.
I'm not allowed to speak about it. I've been told. When I mention anything I see in the news, she goes, I don't want to talk about it. Don't talk to me about it.
Okay.
And I'm like, let's.
All right. Well, flipping it to something more positive. What are you most proud of in your looking back at your career, mate?
Other people winning. And that was one thing that was really interesting with me with being on Movistar and being on Tinkoff, Saxo Tinkoff and Tinkoff Saxo is when I was riding there with Contador, is being a part of a team and doing a job and feeling like you've participated and helped the leader to get to that point to win. And I had, the feelings I had on Movistar when we won the Vuelta and the biggest ones are any race that Valverde won that I was there and that I contributed to, which I believe was all of them. That really gave me an amazing feeling. And I'm super proud of what that was. And the interesting thing was then I won a race myself in the Vuelta a Rioja and I didn't get the same feeling. I was happy, but I wasn't as happy as I was when somebody else won.
Well, that's a sign that you're a bloody good bloke, isn't it?
Maybe. A lot of people tell me I'm not.
No, but isn't that interesting? Because I think I told you guys during the Giro, the first job I had, mate, was as a DS for the Drapac team.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And in the couple of months, after signing on, that was in our Aussie summer, it's end of spring into summer, the first big race we had the following year was the National Championships, and we planned and programmed and focused on getting Darren Lapthorne and McLaughlin actually was the other one that we were trying to get to win the National Championships. And Darren Lapthorne ended up winning the Nationals, which I remember pulling out. So I stopped the car a lap early. I didn't bother following the last lap because we couldn't get up to the front. They wouldn't let us through. So we stopped because I just wanted to be there and watch him come across the line. And I was overwhelmed. I had feelings that I wasn't ready for because I'd spent my life being, a selfish, focused athlete, trying to get the best out of myself. But to actually be a part of helping someone, or small role that I had, to see him win a national championships, it was really interesting. The feelings that were going through.
Yeah, it's an amazing emotional. It's something that you don't expect. And Dan Martin won the third stage here in the Volta. However many months ago that was, I don't know. It feels like I've been here forever. And I remember, he won, but then he's rushed up to podium, and then he has to do doping control, and then he has to do media and everything. So he comes back to the hotel later, and I heard him come in he was in the room next door to me, and so I knew he got back to the room, and I went and knocked on the door, and he opened the door, and we both started crying. And we're both like, what the fuck is going on here? And I was like, and we're not emotional, huggy people with each other. and we gave each other a hug, and I was like, started to tear up, and I'm like, what the hell is wrong with this kid? But like after the finish, I knew that he didn't have his phone with him, so I called his wife on the way back to the hotel, and so I'm chatting with his wife, and we're like getting emotional together and everything, and all excited because we knew how much it means to him, and that's one of the amazing things of this sport, that we can we can be part of something like that.
It's all those tough days, isn't it? It's the days in the rain, the cold, the heat, the crashes, the broken leg, all these things. All those little difficult things add up to the emotion that gets poured out when those sorts of things happen.
look at how many podium situations you've had this year where the people are crying, the riders are crying, and I think that's a big part of the pandemic and these stresses that are underneath us. It's the emotions finally coming out, that people are like, mate, we've just been through this experience, and that's what we get there. But hey, guys, I actually have to go because I've got this riding thing I got to do.
Mate, it's been one of the best chats we've had on the detour, hands down, mate. You've been absolutely unbelievable. So we've got to get you on again.
Yeah, and remember, mate, I know your career's almost over, but there's always time to ride one more Bay Crits.
Oh no, never again. I loved
the chat was going so good.
I loved it. And it was a great part of my life to be able to come and do those things. And that did something special for you as a rider in terms of what you were. If I was doing the national championships, if I did the Bay Crits before, I knew I was going to be way better than if I didn't do it, because it just gave you that extra thing. But I won't be back.
One last question before you go. One last question.
Yes.
We asked this to most of our guests. We're in the middle of a pandemic, and people obviously been really struggling in 2020. What can you leave the viewers and listeners with on tools to get out of really down moments, to pull yourself out when it looks pretty grim?
I think it's just that general positivity of like, I just had this chat, and it's not about the pandemic, but with the unexperienced first-year Grand Tour riders in our team 2 days ago in one of the hardest stages, and they're all shitting themselves. And I sat in the bus, and I'm the one laughing and everything. And they're like, why are you so calm? And I'm like, because it's going to come to an end. Like, you're going to get through it. It's going to suck for a little bit, but it's not the whole day. It's not your whole life you're going to feel this for. It's not like you just got diagnosed with cancer. You're going to get through it. And then tonight we're going to be sitting at the dinner table, and we're all going to be laughing and saying how horrible it was, but you'll get through it. Like, you'll pass it. There is ways, but if you the analogy that I used before, if you go down the rabbit hole, it's the further you go down, the harder it is to come back up again. And I think we're all in a privileged situation where we don't have normal lives and the normal stresses that some people have, especially Europeans in the pandemic and losing jobs and having everyone locked up in their houses. I think we're it's sometimes easier to look at people in more unfortunate situations than you are and really reflect on it and go, my life's really not that bad. If this is as bad as it gets, then I've had a pretty good run, So yeah, that's my drop the mic moment, mate, for you guys.
What a way to finish. You're an absolute legend, Rory, and all the best in your final week, mate.
Thanks, guys. See you later.
Go down.
Cheers, mate. Well done.
Cheers, mate. Wow.
That was good.
I'm lost for words. That was absolutely brilliant. And the guys are backing up on the comments. Thanks, guys. Brilliant. Yeah. Thanks, Rory. Great chat. Cracking podcast tonight, gents. That was so good. He's such a great insight to the sport. Brilliant.
Fantastic.
Well, we had originally planned to preview the Tour de France route. Maybe we skip that and do that tomorrow night on the episode, because
we should.
I think,
yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think the route's not going to change from now until
Good idea. Dan, though, because it has been announced today, are you okay with just mentioning, I remember the last, because it starts in Brest in Brittany, right? And the tip of Brittany is Brest. And you did a Triple J. You were doing crosses, crosses to Triple J radio back in the day when we were working for Fox Sports. And I had to remind you what you just said to them, because for me, with my sense of humour, I thought it was quite funny. What did you say to the guys on Triple J where we were?
I said, I think it's the race is starting in the Brest region. or something.
Yeah. We're starting in the breast region, and of course, my sick sense of humour. I just thought, I'm not sure you understood exactly what you said. Then you may need to explain what the breast region is. It's a town in Brittany. Yeah.
Cracking
So that's where they're
days.
starting. So that's going to be a cracker.
So you're right to come on tomorrow night, Scotty?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Sweet. Well, we'll unpack the Tour de France.
If the wheel wizard's not too happy with my beard, and he can get past that, and just don't go too far down the rabbit hole of being upset by my beard, then I'll come back.
All right. Well, even the Wombat Breath said, great show.
It was Gary who just asked a question a few minutes ago. It was his question the other day. What's happened to Scott? He got the lemonade, but we never actually put that one up. But he hasn't got the lemonade and stars. He's still here.
Yeah, we wanted him to be fresh. As we said, on the detour, we manage people. We don't burn them out. You got to manage your body and your podcast throat.
Exactly.
So, yeah. All right. Well, thanks again, boys. That was a cracking show. I'm actually going to go back and watch it again and watch it on days when I need a bit of inspiration. That was an absolute belter. So, tomorrow night we'll unpack the 2021 Tour de France route and we'll see who else we can hook on our podcast fishing line. Stay tuned for that. See you then.